signed a joint environmental accord with New Zealand at COP26. In many ways, fixing perceived federal shortcomings has become a central focus of Californian politics, but unsurprisingly, this dynamic has spurred tensions with DC.
One good thing that California is doing, and I haven't done too much reading into this, but I believe we are producing our own insulin soon. So there is that. But again, California has a lot of wrong, especially when you talk about housing. Like one of the worst. Holy shit. I mean, that's the major issue that needs to be dealt with. Passing AB 257 fast. Food labor bill was huge. I think the gas price gouging thing, yeah, there's that too. I don't know. I think, what the fuck? What are you doing? Why are you having this conversation with your friends and then sending it to me? Ultimately, the most important, the biggest issue in California is housing. And it's not doing anything to fucking fix it. And the main reason for why is because the people that stand to benefit the most from housing are the ones who, from the current state of housing, are the ones who have an outsized influence and power as it pertains to elections. It's rich people. If California literally fixed its homelessness problem and fixed its housing issue by building more affordable housing, public housing, socialized housing, okay, it would literally be the number one state. It'd be the number one country to live in and of itself. But of course, it's also one of the hardest issues to tackle.
When federal power sways towards the right. There certainly is not.
Actually, that's not true. Then also on top of that, not you suggesting more public housing? What do you mean more? What do you mean more public housing? Where is the public housing in California? Where does it exist? You mean Section 8? Like where? Any. I didn't say more. I said any. Okay? That's number one. Number two, it doesn't end there. Obviously, one of the major problems in at least Los Angeles is also a lack of adequate public transit. The city is not walkable. That's a huge issue. Okay. This person also said California is better than your state. Just accept it. California is my state. I pay a shitload of taxes here, my friend. This is just me demanding a return on that. Zoning issues. I live here too. No, I don't think that that's the only issue. That's one component, certainly, but not the only component.
Not the political will for California secession right now, not even close. But if there was one big perceived encroachment on California's rights, a knockdown of their assault rifle ban or a nationwide abortion ban, one could imagine that political will accumulating quickly. But it's still a largely moot point because it would almost certainly be fixing a problem by creating a bigger problem. As much as California might be held back by sending dollars to Washington or sitting subject to its laws, the state is massively buoyed by its inclusion in the largest economy in the world. Removing itself from the US would have dire economic consequences that would surely outweigh any gain. Perhaps the closest equivalent is Brexit.
Then let them leave. Affordable housing has been around for decades and done nothing. I lived in low-income housing all my life. It just put me in areas where everyone was richer than me, and we still couldn't make ends meet. The issue is so much more complex than your solutions deal with. What? I don't even know what the fuck you're saying. Like, I actually don't understand. Are you saying poor people should just leave? It's not simple. It's so hard to deal with. You're oversimplifying. I'm oversimplifying. You literally said poor people should just leave California. And then told me about how you and your family benefited from low-income housing. You know what would have been worse than low-income housing? Your mom and dad being homeless, weirdo. What the fuck are you saying? What? Yes, I'm saying things will stabilize over time. What the fuck? Okay. First of all, that's not true. You want to know why pushing homeless people aside, like pushing them away, further and further away from Los Angeles, is not actually going to solve the homelessness problem? Because the number of homeless people keep growing. You want to know why? Because people are constantly getting priced out of the housing market. So if you don't tackle it on that side of the issue, there's no way to tackle it at all. Also, you said you were a poor person living with rich people and you hated it. So you think it's better off for people to just like leave? I don't understand. Who's going to do the jobs? Who's going to do the jobs? You think there isn't need for people who need who need to live in low income housing that will still do certain jobs that people will never pay more money for? They should. I'm a homeowner now. I've been on both ends. Yeah, I can see your survivorship bias fucking seeping through as you type on your fucking iPhone.
Much of the political will came from a belief that the European Union was taking the country's money and encroaching on its sovereignty, but now just a
That's the funniest, like, dude, that literally, it's giving, what's his name? Starbucks CEO sweaty. It's like, I lived on welfare, okay? I made it. So I think we don't need welfare no more. It's literally Howard Schultz ass shit. I lived and survived on social housing, or not even social housing, but like low income housing, which is why we should abolish it and push people away. Like, how do you not even see what you are fucking advocating for from your own personal experience? That's not at all what I'm saying. You just said poor people should just leave LA.
A few years on, with mounting issues on trade and travel, public opinion has shifted decisively towards regret. Most agree that removing the UK from the world's third largest economy was not the right move. Public opinion on Californian independence has never neared a majority, but there have been enough fringe movements seeking secession that the question has been included in legitimate political polling, reliably demonstrating surprising support for the idea. Between 14 and 32% of respondents were for Californian nationhood. In fact, in one poll run by a Stanford-affiliated think tank, the 18 to 29 demographic responded as 36%.
Bro, this is so funny. I mean, companies should spread out and allow poor people to continue to live there. Yeah, except let's say we don't fucking, let's say we don't improve the working conditions of like teachers, nurses, sanitation workers, delivery drivers. And let's say we don't do that because it doesn't seem like we're going to do that. And also on top of that, we have the same attitude that you just suggested, where if you're poor, you just fuck off and you go live somewhere else. Okay? I'm not even going to get into like the inhumanity of what you're suggesting. That like you deserve to leave if you don't have the if you can't pay for it. Okay? So what happens? Like you built the corporations elsewhere, let's say. which they do already. It's called low-cost sites. They take advantage of many tax benefits. That's why they build places in states like Oklahoma. Okay? Okay, companies leave. So what's going to happen? Who do you think there is no need for these services any longer? Like, I don't understand. Who's doing sanitation? Who's teaching your children? You know? Who's doing janitor duties at the hospital? This is before we even comprehend how expensive it is to fucking move with no help from the government at all. Like who's doing the jobs that keep everything going and moving? You know what I mean? Yeah, who's picking the vegetables and the fruits, honestly? Yeah, we should get the fucking Hollywood film executive to do it, actually. It'll work. Like, even it's funny because, like, it is unimaginably cruel to tell poor people just fucking move. You know what I mean? Just like uproot your life. We're never going to give you enough money to do that. Okay? But like, even if we were to do that, even if we just like sidestep that cruelty, the inhumanity of your suggestion, who's going to do the jobs? Stop saying I told poor people to move. I'm saying that all companies that threaten to leave just should. We shouldn't tie them. Wait, what? You're not talking about that. You literally just said you got to be better about actually sourcing evidence when you insist something is wrong. Stop just claiming. Find evidence. If you're going to call someone a liar, then find the evidence. I live in San Diego. Same issues here. Yeah, not everyone could just say they are fine with their houses devaluing. People are locked into 30-year loans. Yeah, I wonder what changed in your material realities that cause you to literally take the fucking reactionary, NIMBY-ass stance that you're fucking suggesting in the chat, going from a motherfucker who lived in affordable housing with your families to one who actually owns a home. You literally are describing exactly what I'm talking about with respect to homeowners in this fucking state. Okay? And this guy doesn't even rent, I assume. I suspect he doesn't rent out his house. He's not even a goddamn landlord. He's just a homeowner. Every single homeowner operates like this. They think their value, their home's value appreciating is profoundly important for them. They don't want their home value to depreciate. And there's truth to that because, they're on 30-year loans, right? Oh. Chowder said if corporations are going to threaten to leave, then let them leave, not poor people. Okay, but you do realize that one aspect of home ownership means not having a permanent growth strategy, a permanent appreciation strategy on home values, okay? And as a homeowner, he's saying that that's unacceptable, that shouldn't happen. So he's literally making sure that there isn't more affordable housing available. Note by the way that 55% of Californians own the home they live in. Makes it hard to make policy when a majority freaks out about home prices, which is why we never should have treated it as an investment in the first place. It's the poor people that get priced by keeping certain tech sectors here. Stop trying to make a ton of assumptions about me. I mean, you're already mentioning like what your interest is. You said that you don't want your home value devaluing. I have told you what needs to happen. And you think that we're fundamentally at odds here. We need to decommodify housing. It has to happen. I'm moving in 2 weeks and coming a renter. I don't care. What? It's not that I don't think it needs changing. It needs massive changes, but they're so complex. What are you saying? I know that they're complex. I mean, I get it. You simply them to be just build more houses? No, I didn't say that. I said low income housing is what needs to be built. And then you said, I lived in affordable housing and it's been around for decades and done nothing. I lived in low income housing my whole life. It just put me in areas where everyone was richer than me and we still couldn't make ends meet. The issue is so much more complex than your solutions. Yes. And when I said, what, you want fucking poor people to just leave? You said, yes, I'm saying things will stabilize over time. And then when you realize that you're like, you know, coming across like a fucking vulture, okay? Then you turned around and said, okay, maybe I wasn't meaning that. I meant the companies should leave, okay? And you said stop saying I told poor people to move. Not that I don't think it needs changing. It needs massive changes, but they're so complex. You just keep saying they're complex now. Dude, 100% bought at the peak and is freaking out. Do corporations bring cheaper housing areas? Or am I mistaken on what you're saying? I'm confused. No, corporations will often implement low-cost sites. Like they'll go to places like Oklahoma where they get money from the government, money from the state government to build what is known as low-cost sites. And places like that, they can actually engage in profit-seeking measures like all of the other people that work in that site. They can pay way less wages because the cost of living is much cheaper. They do that already. They do that in Oklahoma, for example. Oklahoma is a good example of this. There are a lot of places in middle America where this already exists. Just that they still can't maintain people staying there. But even then, that doesn't solve the issue that I'm mentioning. There are millions of fucking people that live here. And they're living there are millions of people that live here. We can't tell them to fuck off and leave, okay? So what do we do?
Percent for and just 40% against, almost even, demonstrating that, while majority opinion is not nearly in support of the extreme, unprecedented measure of modern state secession, the perceived disconnect with Washington has pushed the idea up to surprising levels of legitimacy. We all know pragmatically that secession will never happen in anything close to this reality, but partition could. The underlying idea is the same, that California is big, underrepresented, overtaxed. The solution is just less extreme. Split it into smaller states. This has been proposed legitimately over 200 times, and the most recent concerted push was led by billionaire investor Tim Draper in 2018. He proposed splitting the state into 3 parts called Northern California, Southern California, and California, attempting to balance population, wealth, and politics somewhat evenly across the 3. The central argument was that the state government was out of touch with local governments given the huge difference in size between the two, and that the federal government was out of touch with the state government given the diluted representation. So the solution—
Yeah, the amount of fucking Republican districts that would come out of that is unimaginable, dude. They would fucking gerrymander the shit out of that so aggressively, and it would not be in a way that is beneficial at all to the Democratic Party. Holy fuck. Oh my God. More blue states? Hell no. I don't even think that it would end up becoming, I mean, it'd be 2 more blue states and 1 like massive red state. Actually, it's funny. They tried to gerrymander it, but if you look at the votes, it would have been all 6 Dem senators. I don't know. I think we forget how fucking red California land can be. You know what I mean?
Solution was to reduce the size of the state and also, given the 2 senators per state system, give more powerful federal representation to the population. The argument was persuasive enough to generate far more than 367,000 signatures necessary to put the question on the ballot, but before Election Day, it was struck down by the state Supreme Court on constitutional grounds. Even so, it probably wouldn't have passed. Polling showed its support between 13 and 17%, but even if the state did vote for it, it'd then be up to the federal government to approve such a split, and the federal government would almost certainly never approve a split. Democrats would balk at the fact that it would fracture a strongly Democratic state, Republicans would balk at the 4 additional left-leaning congresspeople it would send to DC, everyone would ask whether it'd be too dangerous a precedent to establish. So the big solutions aren't reasonable, and these small solutions aren't working. Perhaps the answer is that California is...
It's funny, like, people literally forget that California was a red state, dude. Like, California gave 2 major fucking Republican presidents. 2 of the worst. Well, one definitely, like, objectively one of the worst. Like, Nixon and Reagan both came from California. California gave us Reagan, man. I think people just forget that all the time. Like, crazy. California has been liberal for shorter than it has been Republican.
It's just too unique, because it definitely is unique. There is no state, region, or other national subdivision with a larger economy on Earth, and going...
Dude, that's awesome. There's a whole zone in SD now where they can build 100-unit apartment buildings. We need to provide parking lots. What model for building generational wealth to suggest in place of decommodifying housing? What model for building generational wealth to suggest in place of decommodifying housing? You dodging my questions because it's uninteresting, my man? What the fuck? You dodging my questions because uninteresting, or you ain't got ideas, my man? What if I were to say I don't have an idea of building intergenerational wealth in place of, like, home ownership? Okay, what if I were to say that? Okay, what if I were to tell you I don't care, that I don't think that we should be relying on intergenerational wealth being built from home ownership, and instead decommodify it so thoroughly that it doesn't even matter? That, like, a gigantic aspect of existence that makes it a necessity to build intergenerational wealth is the home ownership itself and how expensive it is. What if I were to tell you that? Or even if I don't have all the fucking answers. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think is happening in a country like fucking Austria? What do you think goes on there when in a city as densely packed as fucking Vienna, 65% of the homes are publicly owned? What happens there? You think there's no rich people in Austria? What do you think, that people are just, like, suffering there dramatically? Do you think that it's more utilitarian to cut off that aspect of intergenerational wealth development and at the very least make sure that there are less homeless people? I don't know. That's a good idea, I think. Also, dodging your fucking questions, dumbass. Yeah, as my mod already told you before timing you out, there's fucking 26,000 people in here. Why do you think I can, like, have a one-on-one conversation with you, even though I'm doing it now? What you're saying about intergenerational wealth this way, or generational wealth this way, is literally just the opposite version of what TikTok landlords say all the time. Just buy a home, forehead. The only way to fucking build generational wealth is buying a home, stupid. Like, okay, how do you do that? How does, out of the 26,185 people in this fucking chat right now, with some notable exceptions like Corey Lulu, who was chirping about home ownership earlier, how the fuck do the overwhelming majority of people in here do that without already having existing generational wealth? How are they going to do that? How would you do that without having generational wealth to begin with? Oof.
Going down the list, there aren't really even near equivalents. Texas is number 2, but it's run by small government conservatives, meaning state intervention on problems is limited. New York is number 3, but nearly all of its GDP is concentrated in one massive metro area, meaning its structure is far simpler. You then have England, but it acts as a nation within a nation, then Guangdong and Jiangsu, but China isn't a democratic state, then Florida, but it has a Texas-style small government bent, then Shandong and Xishan, also China, then Illinois, mostly one city, then Henan, also China, then finally Pennsylvania.
Wait,
With its comparatively conservative, smaller government politics, it's not a great equivalent to California, but it's the closest so far considering its wealth is somewhat geographically distributed and its government is more open to intervention than in Florida or Texas.
Wait, why did he just fucking shit on government intervention by saying China is not comparable because it's not democratic? It's like, maybe it's the solution. I mean, look, I can't speak on Chinese real estate that much. Okay. But no, like government intervention is literally the solution to this problem. The only solution.
It's not a great equivalent to California, but it's the closest so far considering its wealth is somewhat geographically distributed and its government is more open to intervention than in Florida or Texas. So that's to say, California is not only unique to the rest of the US.
Bro, you said lol, like those Chinese ghost cities, lol. Brother, okay, Chinese ghost cities, right? Fine, got it. Do you want 90% or at least like 75% home ownership? Or 90% home ownership? Or do you not want that?